Azizah sat on the old wooden chair in their small living room, staring at the clock that seemed to move slower than time itself. Her husband Farhan should have been home an hour ago, but she knew why he was late again. Every day it was the same story. His boss humiliated him in front of his co-workers. His colleagues laughed behind his back, and he returned home broken and tired, carrying wounds that could not be seen, but were heavy on his heart. Azizah whispered to herself, I cannot watch him suffer like this forever. One day they will pay. But she knew revenge was not something to be rushed. It had to be crafted with patience, like a blade sharpened in silence. The front door creaked, and Farhan entered. His shoulders slouched, his eyes hollow. Azizah rushed toward him and placed her hands on his arms. Farhan, what happened today? He avoided her gaze. Nothing new. They mocked me again, said I was slow, said I was useless. The boss shouted so loud everyone stared at me. Azizah, I feel like I am shrinking every day. Azizah held his face, forcing him to look at her. You are not useless. You are more valuable than all of them combined. Tell me their names. Tell me everything they did. Farhan shook his head. No, if I speak their names, I will feel hatred boiling inside me, and it will destroy me. Azizah leaned closer. Let me carry that hatred then. You just focus on surviving each day. One day, I will make them regret every word, every laugh, every insult. He stared at her as if he wanted to believe, but was afraid to hope. Azizah, please promise me you will not do something reckless. She smiled, but her smile carried fire. I promise I will not be reckless. But I will not stay silent either. That night when Farhan finally slept exhausted, Azizah sat by the window, staring into the darkness. She could almost hear the echoes of laughter from those who hurt him. She clenched her fists. Her heart whispered, a storm is coming. They think they are untouchable, but they do not know the strength of a wife who loves her husband more than her own life. Outside the night was quiet, but inside, Azizah, a fire had begun to roar. The next morning, Azizah prepared breakfast, while Farhan sat silently at the table. His hands trembled as he tried to hold the cup of tea. Azizah watched him closely. Farhan, what did they do to you yesterday? After the boss shouted. He hesitated for a moment, then spoke slowly. They gave me the heaviest tasks alone. They knew I could not finish on time. When I failed, they laughed again. Some even pretended to help, just so they could mock me louder. Azizah clenched her spoon so tightly her knuckles turned white. And the boss? What did he say? Farhan lowered his head. He said I was a burden to the company. He said if it were not for pity, I would have been thrown out long ago. Azizah's eyes burned with fury. How dare they? They feed their arrogance with your sweat. They humiliate you to build their pride. Farhan, you must not let them break you. Farhan gave a weak smile. Azizah, you are the only reason I keep going. If you were not here, I would have given up long ago. Azizah moved closer and placed her hand on his. Listen to me, Farhan. Every insult they throw is a debt they owe. Every humiliation is a seed of revenge. One day, you will not only rise above them, you will see them bow to you. Farhan shook his head with despair. That sounds like a dream. People like me never rise. People like them always win. Azizah looked straight into his eyes. Dreams are not lies, Farhan. They are visions waiting for courage. And I will be your courage. Later that day, Azizah visited the marketplace. While buying rice, she overheard two men talking. They worked in the same company as Farhan. Their laughter was sharp like knives. One said, Did you see Farhan yesterday? He looked like a lost child begging for mercy. Another answered, The boss should fire him soon. He makes us all look bad. Azizah froze. Her heart pounded. She walked past them, but her ears caught every word. She whispered inside her soul, Laugh while you can. One day your laughter will choke you. That evening she told Farhan what she heard. He covered his face with his hands. Please, Azizah, do not tell me such things. It hurts too much. She touched his shoulder gently. Sometimes pain must be remembered, Farhan. Because pain is what gives us the strength to change destiny. Farhan stayed silent. His silence was heavy, but Azizah could feel a spark beginning to form in him. A spark she would protect until it became fire. Days turned into weeks, and the weight on Farhan's shoulders only grew heavier. Each evening he returned with new scars, etched in his spirit. Azizah could see it in the way he walked slower each night, in the way his eyes avoided hers, as if ashamed of something he did not cause. One evening as the rain tapped on the tin roof, Farhan collapsed on the couch. His voice was hoarse as he spoke. Azizah, today, they pushed me harder than ever. They made me carry loads no one else wanted to touch. My back feels like it is breaking. Azizah knelt in front of him and held his hands tightly. Tell me who made you do it. Tell me who laughed the loudest. Farhan looked away. What would it change to know their names? Azizah, I fear you will try to confront them. She pressed his hands harder. What it would change is everything. Knowing them means seeing clearly who your enemies are. They are not faceless shadows, Farhan. They are men of flesh and weakness. Farhan's lips trembled as he finally spoke. The worst is my supervisor, Rahman. He despises me. He calls me lazy in front of everyone. Then there is Fadil and Karim. They always repeat his words like parrots. The others follow their lead. Azizah whispered those names like a vow. Rahman, Fadil, Karim. Then she lifted her head. Farhan, remember this night. The rain bears witness. One day those names will tremble in your presence. Farhan shook his head in disbelief. You speak as if destiny can be rewritten. Azizah's eyes glowed with determination. Destiny is not written in stone. It is written in the choices we make, and I choose to fight for you. The following week, Azizah decided to visit the company building quietly. She waited across the street, hidden by a row of trees. From there, she watched workers leaving at dusk. She saw Rahman swagger out, laughing loudly surrounded by others. She saw Fadil and Karim, mocking a younger worker, making him carry heavy boxes, while they stood idly. Azizah's heart hardened. She whispered to herself, these are the wolves who feast on the weak. But even wolves bleed. When Farhan came out last, he looked crushed, shoulders bent, eyes down. He walked alone while others celebrated. Azizah's fists curled at her sides. That night she told him, I saw them. I saw Rahman leading his pack of jackals. Farhan, it is true what you said. They treat you like prey. But listen to me. Even prey can become predator when the time is right. Farhan stared at her, trembling between fear and hope. Azizah, your words are dangerous. She leaned closer. Her words were fire. Then let danger be the weapon that saves us. The following days, Azizah's mind was restless. Every hour she thought about Rahman, the cruel supervisor and his shadows, Fadil and Karim. She began to imagine what it would take to break their pride. She knew striking too soon would waste the chance. Revenge had to be planted carefully, like seeds in fertile soil. One night she sat beside Farhan, who was too exhausted to eat. She touched his arm gently. Farhan, listen to me. If you could change one thing about your work, what would it be? His eyes looked dull with fatigue. I would want respect. Not money, not praise. Just respect. To walk into that place and not feel like dirt. Azizah held his gaze. Then that is what you will have. But to get respect, you must rise above them. You must show strength where they expect weakness. Farhan gave a bitter laugh. Azizah, they control everything. I am just one worker among many. How can I rise above them? She spoke firmly. Not by fighting them head-on, by being smarter, by waiting for the moment they reveal their own weakness. People who thrive on cruelty always stumble eventually, and when they do, we will be ready. Farhan was silent for a long time before whispering, do you really believe I can overcome them? Azizah nodded with certainty. I do, because I see a strength in you that they cannot see. The next morning, Azizah began asking questions in the marketplace again. She spoke to an old man who once worked at the same company. He told her Rahman had enemies even within the office. He had gained his position by stepping on others. Fadil and Karim were only clowns who followed his shadow for scraps. Azizah stored this information like treasure. She smiled faintly. So even the mighty Rahman is built on unstable ground. That evening, she told Farhan, I have learned something important. Rahman is not as powerful as he pretends. He has cracks in his armor. We only need to wait for the right strike. Farhan frowned. But what if the strike never comes? Azizah placed her hand on his chest. Then we will make it come. Fate is not a gift. It is a creation. Farhan looked at her with a flicker of hope that had been absent for months. For the first time, his shoulders lifted slightly. Azizah felt the fire inside her growing brighter. The time of silence was ending. Azizah spent the following week quietly gathering pieces of information. She spoke to people who had left the company, to shopkeepers who often saw the workers, even to a janitor who sometimes delivered supplies. Every detail she collected became part of a bigger picture. She learned that Rahman often stole credit for the work of others, that he was careless with records, and that Fadil and Karim blindly defended him because they feared losing their place beside him. One evening, when Farhan came home, she saw his face was darker than usual. She hurried to him. What happened today? Farhan sighed heavily. Rahman insulted me in front of everyone again. He said I was slower than a child. Then he forced me to redo tasks that were already finished just to humiliate me. Azizah's jaw tightened. And how did the others react? Farhan lowered his head. They laughed. Even those who sometimes treat me kindly stayed silent. Azizah, it feels like I am drowning in shame every day. She cupped his face. Look at me, Farhan. You are not drowning. They only want you to believe that. Listen carefully. I've started to learn things about Rahman. He is not as invincible as you think. Farhan blinked in disbelief. What do you mean? Azizah leaned closer. I have spoken to people. Rahman steals credit. He is reckless. If the right evidence comes out, he will fall. Farhan whispered. But who will believe us? Everyone sees him as powerful. Azizah replied. The truth always has a way of breaking chains. But we must be patient. You keep working. Do not let them see your anger. Let them believe you are weak. And I will find the cracks. That night, Farhan held her hands tightly. Azizah, why do you fight so hard for me? She smiled with fire in her eyes. Because when they humiliate you, they humiliate me too. And I will not allow anyone to crush the man I love. The next day, Azizah secretly followed Rahman after work. She watched him meet with another manager at a small cafe. She listened from a distance and caught fragments of their conversation. Words like forged numbers, missing files, and bribes slipped through. Her heart raced. This was it, proof that Rahman's empire was built on lies. When she returned home, she whispered to herself, the day will come soon. Farhan will rise, and those who mocked him will crawl in the dirt. Azizah's nights became restless. She replayed every word she had overheard between Rahman and the manager. Forged numbers, missing files, bribes. Each clue was a weapon waiting to be sharpened. But she knew that weapons without evidence were useless. The next morning, she walked to the office district, carrying a small notebook. She waited near the cafe again, where Rahman often met his contacts. Hours passed, until she finally saw him arrive. He sat with a different man this time, speaking in a low voice. Azizah could not hear every word, but she caught enough. Shipment records, extra payments, false signatures. She wrote everything quickly in her notebook, her hands trembling with purpose. That evening, Farhan returned home, weary as always. Azizah welcomed him with warm food, but her eyes shone. With something stronger than kindness. Farhan, she said, I have seen more. Rahman is hiding dirty secrets. Farhan froze. What kind of secrets? She explained in careful detail. The meeting she had watched, the words she had written. Farhan's face shifted from disbelief to shock, and then to fear. Azizah, you should not risk yourself like this. If they find out you are following him, they could hurt you. Azizah placed her hand firmly on his chest. Let them try. I am not afraid. What matters is that you must be ready. When the truth comes out, you will be standing tall while they fall. Farhan whispered, with a trembling voice. Do you think justice will truly come? Azizah's voice was fierce. Justice is not given. It is taken. The next day, she visited the old man from the marketplace again, the one who once worked under Rahman. She asked him about shipment records and payments. He laughed bitterly. That man always played with numbers. I lost my job because I refused to lie for him. If you want proof, search the old archives. They keep them at the storage building near the port. Azizah felt her heart pound with hope. She bowed in gratitude and hurried home. That night she told Farhan about the archives. His eyes widened. You mean the truth might still be there in those files? Yes, Azizah answered firmly. And when we have them, Rahman will not only lose his position, he will taste the humiliation he fed you for years. Farhan gripped her hands tightly. A fire flickered in his tired eyes. Azizah, maybe for the first time. I can see a way out, she smiled. That fire in you is what I have been waiting for. Hold on to it. Soon the storm will break. The next morning, Azizah rose before the sun. She wrapped a scarf around her head and prepared herself for the journey to the port. Her heart beat fast, but her steps were steady. The old man's words echoed in her mind. The truth lies in the archives. She reached the storage building near the docks. The air smelled of salt and rust. Workers moved heavy crates, but no one paid attention to a woman carrying a basket. Azizah slipped inside the building, her eyes scanning rows of dusty shelves, stacked with old files. She whispered to herself, somewhere in here lies the rope that will hang Rahman. Hours passed as she opened box after box. Finally, she found what she needed. Documents with Rahman's signature, authorizing shipments that never existed, records of money that vanished without trace, pages that screamed corruption. She tucked the papers carefully into her basket and hurried. out before anyone noticed. That evening, Farhan returned home and found Azizah sitting at the table with the files spread before her. His eyes widened. What is all this? Azizah smiled with triumph. Evidence. Proof of Rahman's lies. Look here, Farhan. These shipments were never real. This money never reached the company. Yet his signature is everywhere. Farhan trembled as he touched the papers. Azizah, this could ruin him completely. But if anyone discovers we took these files, they will come after us. Azizah looked at him with fire in her eyes. Then we must be clever. We cannot simply throw this into the open. We must wait until the right moment when everyone is watching. Farhan sank into the chair, burying his face in his hands. For so long I dreamed of justice. But now that it is within reach, I feel fear instead of relief. Azizah took his hands away from his face. Farhan, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is standing even when fear shakes your bones. And you will stand. He stared at her, unable to speak. For the first time, he saw in her not only the woman he loved but the warrior he needed. That night, Azizah hid the documents in a locked chest beneath their bed. As she closed the lid, she whispered, "The day is coming, Rahman. The mask you wear will be torn apart, and you will feel the same shame you forced upon my husband." Outside, the wind howled, as if carrying her vow across the night. Azizah spent days thinking about how to use the evidence. She knew if she went directly to Rahman, he would deny everything and destroy the proof. If she gave the files to the wrong person, they could disappear before the truth was known. She needed a stage where the whole company would witness his downfall. One night she shared her thoughts with Farhan. He looked uneasy as she spoke. "You want to expose him in front of everyone? But how, Azizah? They all stand by his side." Azizah shook her head. "They stand by him because they fear him. But fear crumbles when truth is revealed. The company holds monthly meetings, does it not?" Farhan nodded. "Yes, the manager and all workers attend. It is always Rahman who speaks the loudest." Azizah's eyes gleamed. "Then that meeting will be his grave. We will place the evidence where no hand can hide it." Farhan swallowed hard. "Azizah, if this fails, they will crush us." She held his face gently. "If we stay silent, they will crush us anyway. At least this way we fight back." The following day, Azizah visited the old man once more. She showed him some of the papers. His eyes widened with fury. "That snake, I knew he was stealing. If you reveal this during the meeting, no one will defend him. I can even testify if needed." Azizah felt her heart lift slightly. Allies were forming. The cracks in Rahman's empire were widening. That evening she told Farhan, "The old man will support us. You will not be alone in that room." Farhan looked at her with trembling eyes. "Azizah, what if they laugh at me again, even when I show them the truth?" She answered firmly, "Then let them laugh. Because when Rahman falls, their laughter will choke them in their throats." The night before the meeting, Azizah laid the papers out one by one on the table. Farhan sat opposite her, studying them carefully. His hands no longer trembled as much as before. Azizah watched him and whispered, "Do you see it, Farhan? This is your weapon. Tomorrow you will no longer bow. Tomorrow they will bow to you." Farhan lifted his head slowly. A faint flame burned in his tired eyes. "Tomorrow," he whispered. "Tomorrow everything changes." Azizah closed her eyes and breathed deeply. The storm she had promised was almost here. The day of the meeting arrived. Farhan dressed in his cleanest shirt, though it was old and faded. Azizah straightened, the collar with steady hands whispering, "You are not the man they mocked. Today you are the man who will make them tremble." Farhan nodded, though fear still shadowed his eyes. Together they walked to the company building. Workers filled the hall, whispering among themselves. As always, Rahman stood at the front, boasting loudly about his leadership, while Fadil and Kareem laughed at every word. When the manager called the meeting to order, Rahman stepped forward with his usual arrogance. He spoke of progressive profits, of his supposed sacrifices. Many clapped, but some looked away, clearly tired of his voice. Then the manager asked if anyone had matters to raise. The hall grew quiet. No one ever dared to speak against Rahman. But that day Farhan slowly stood. All eyes turned to him. Murmurs spread through the hall. Some smirked, expecting another humiliation. Farhan's voice shook. "At first, I have something important. Documents that reveal the truth about Rahman." Laughter erupted from one side. Fadil shouted loudly, "Farhan can barely finish his work, and now he claims to hold the truth." Rahman sneered, "Sit down before you embarrass yourself further." But Farhan did not sit. He raised the papers high. His voice grew stronger. "These files show shipments that never existed. money that vanished, signatures that belonged to Rahman. The manager's eyes narrowed. Bring them here. Azizah watched from the back of the hall, her heart pounding. Farhan walked forward and laid the documents on the table. Silence spread as the manager flipped through the pages. His expression darkened. Rahman tried to laugh weakly. Those are lies forged by jealous men. At that moment, the old man from the marketplace stood up from a corner of the hall. I worked under Rahman. I saw how he forced us to sign false reports. Everything Farhan says is true. Gasps filled the room. The workers who once laughed at Farhan now stared at Rahman with suspicion. Farhan's voice grew firm. For years you mocked me. You called me useless. Yet here you stand exposed as the thief and liar. Rahman's face turned pale. His words stumbled. But the manager slammed the table. Enough. These accusations are serious. Rahman, you will answer for this. The hall erupted. Some shouted in anger at Rahman. Others looked at Farhan with new respect. Azizah's heart swelled. The tide had turned. The room was no longer Rahman's stage. His arrogance crumbled under the weight of silence and anger. The manager's voice echoed like thunder. Rahman, you are suspended immediately, while we investigate these records. Guards, take him out. Fadil and Karim, who had always laughed the loudest, now shifted nervously. Some workers shouted at them. You knew all along. You helped him humiliate others. Their faces turned red with shame. As Rahman was dragged out, he screamed, "This is not over." But his voice was drowned by the noise of the crowd. Farhan stood still, his chest rising and falling quickly. For the first time, he felt the eyes of the workers on him, not with mockery but with respect. The manager looked at him and said quietly, "Farhan, thank you for your courage. You have done this company a great service." Later, when the meeting ended, Farhan walked out with Azizah by his side. Some of the workers approached hesitantly. "Farhan, we misjudged you," they said. "Forgive us." Farhan stopped and turned his eyes sharp as blades. "Forgive you?" he asked. "Did you forgive me when you laughed as I was humiliated? Did you forgive me when you watched me break under the weight of insults? No, you joined in the cruelty. Now you will feel the same silence I once felt." The workers lowered their heads, unable to answer. Azizah watched quietly, her heart proud. Days passed, and Rahman's corruption became public. He lost everything: his position, his wealth, his dignity. Fadil and Karim were dismissed for covering his crimes. Those who once mocked Farhan avoided his gaze now. They whispered his name, not with laughter, but with unease. One morning, Farhan entered the office with his shoulders straight. The room grew silent. No one dared to joke, no one dared to insult. He placed his work on the desk calmly and spoke. "Only those who respect others will earn respect from me. Those who mock will be treated the same." No one replied. The silence was heavy, but it was not the silence of humiliation. It was the silence of fear. That evening, Azizah met him at the door. She smiled at him. "You see, Farhan, they treated you like dirt, but now they bow their heads. This is not just revenge. This is justice." Farhan embraced her tightly. His voice was steady. "I could never have stood without you. They gave me pain, but you gave me fire. Now they will live with the memory of how they once treated me." And in that moment, the circle was complete.